Hi, I'm resident of Colwood for YouTube. I'm here to do my read along of to Benight and Beguile, Book 6, Chapter 13. I'm laughing because my camera just had a malfunction before I started this recording, and I have no idea why. It's the little things I find funny. So, anyway, Book 6, Chapter 13. Brothers, sisters, liars, lovers. A busy afternoon in Welshport meant fishing fleets were near their return to shore with a fresh load of everything, from cod to crab, from yellowfin tuna to blue mackerel and sardines. No salmon? No. Okay. Uh, Nothing made the afternoon busier than the gossip swirling around town still of the battling night before at Village Park, when Philip Braga in werewolf form attacked and killed several villagers, including the village constable Gregory Rains. He had it coming. At Welshport Hope Hospital, Dr. Ward filled in the new nurse, Daniel Holt, of the night's event. She had luckily missed the whole thing due to her shift at the hospital that night. I like how here's this. You have people who did miss the event because they had to work. It gives. There are many moments. Sorry, I'm stopping to explain this, but there are many moments in John's To Benight and Beguile that there are realistic moments of realism amongst the characters. And that's what really another part of this story that he brings. There's a lot of realism in it. So, my God, Doctor, that's terrible. I read the paper, but your account sounds so much more, I don't know, chaotic and horrifying. Don't quite seem to fit, the dark-haired young nurse said, but it truly was horrifying. I'm just glad we all got out alive. Well, almost all of us, Peter replied, thinking of Rains. Then he noticed papers in the nurse's hand that weren't from the hospital. What's that? Oh, I apologize. I shouldn't bring in personal things here, but with all my shifts, I just have to. These are formal documents to declare my father dead. I have to mail them to Denmark, where he was from, to declare him deceased. It's just to cover our bases. In the event someone should contest a late mother's wishes, she explained. Oh, that's right. You mentioned that your father had been missing for more than a year now. I'm sorry you have to do all this, Ward added. Yeah, well, basically, and this can happen in real life too, usually. Like, if you declare somebody dead within a year, back then, like way back when, the women would get contested. Actually, I gotta, when I bring John on for an interview, I gotta tell him a little story. Because there was a real life incident. There's a couple of real life incidents, but there was one in particular about a park ranger where this happened. It's surreal for sure. When my parents moved here a few years back, I never expected him to go missing and her to pass away so soon after. We say she died of a broken heart. She never got over his disappearance, Danielle further explained. Well, Nurse Holton, feel free to take a moment on all that paperwork when you can, and try to keep up, Peter winked, knowing Danielle would not neglect her actual job. Danielle smiled. She had been struggling for years to find her father, who up and vanished from Welshport without a trace. Victor and Nina Holton had come to Welshport only the year before Victor's vanishing from Copenhagen, sorry. While Danielle lived in Boston, her mother, who died shortly after Victor vanished, had left a fortune. The newspaper was all to settle her family's estate now that her father was finally going to be declared dead in America and his native Denmark. Yeah, where you're from, if you're from another country, the country might protest or contest the death, basically. Just to be a dick. It happens. It happens. Danielle, who permanently moved to Welshport and was living in her parents' home, stared down at the papers in front of her. She had been hesitant to check the box next to her father's name that said Alfredud, the Danish word for deceased. It just felt so final. It was the end of a long, sad journey. She'd been a grown-up orphan now, but it had to be done. Danielle checked the box and placed the folded papers in the envelope set for Copenhagen. Elsewhere at Hope Hospital, more drama was unfolding. Ashia Hoffman, who had survived captivity in a secret room at Gregory's, and the fire that burned down the building, still lay asleep in her hospital bed. Sorry, my cat's laying right next to me. The fire all but pushed Ashia's body to the brink as smoke filled her lungs. Her brain, unable to get the proper oxygen, locked her into a coma. Nick sat at her bedside, worried that she would never wake up and tell them everything. Dr. Jordan, she's going to be all right, Dr. Ward said, entering the room with his paperwork on Ashia's case. Nick replied, seemingly in his own coma, or trance, thinking about everything that happened. Ward smiled and patted the young doctor on the back. I've seen this before. It'll take time, and with proper care, Dr. Hoffman will come out of this. I have to tell my mother, Nick then said. Ward nodded. She's here with your sister. They're speaking with Chaplain about what to do with Gregory. He's really dead then. Nick asked, his emotion showing nothing but disdain. Dr. Ward nodded. All right. Nick stood up and reached down for Ashia's hand as she slept. He squeezed it and told her he'd be back. After a few minutes and several hallways later, Nick found his mother and sister sitting in a small, brightly lit chapel where a man was finishing up arrangements for Gregory. Aurora had also given instructions on where to find his family, who would probably want to bury him in his hometown. Mother, Nick said in a whisper. Oh, Nicky, she said, standing up and rushing over to her son, who she had heard saved Ashia from the fire. Nick, what's going on? How could Gregory have done all this to Ashia? Evie said, she too in shock over Gregory's sheep in wolf's clothing. I don't even know where to begin, Nick said. So it's true, you found Ashia in some room at Gregory's. Dr. Ward filled us in on some things, but honestly, it's all unbelievable from everything I've gone through. That's saying a lot, Evie added. Nick nodded. I had a hunch she was there. It just didn't make sense that she would have left without saying goodbye. And I was right. A hunch? That would make me that would make you think she was hiding at Gregory's, Aurora asking, misunderstanding that Ashia was not hiding, but being held. No, Mother, Gregory was keeping her there, tied up in that room, Nick said. What? No way. What are you talking about, Aurora asked. Dr. Ward and the chaplain, noticing the family needed a minute alone, quickly made nervous exit. A few weeks ago, here at the hospital, I was coming back from a meeting with Dr. Ward. When I was looking for Ashia, I came across her speaking with Gregory, but it wasn't a very normal conversation. I heard them arguing about something that something the two of them were keeping from us, from all of us, Nick explained. Evie stepped forward and grabbed her mother's hand, expecting to hear about an affair. What was it? Evie asked. She was upset over something the two of them had done, and she, feeling guilty about it, wanted to come clean, and Gregory was furious with her because he had helped her with something, and now she needed to pay him back by keeping his secret of theirs. He explained further. Oh, God, Evie said, still believing an affair was about to be exposed. Go on, Aurora said, now feeling the same as Evie. It was about the night you gave birth to the baby, Mother. Shia was there. Nick said the room suddenly felt heavy. Aurora had not discussed much of the night she gave birth to Caspian's child, a child she conceived while believing she was making love to Gregory, only to discover it was Caspian's possessed body morphing into Gregory's. The baby she believed had died. The truth was coming. Gregory did not want you to have this child, feared your connection to Caspian, but somehow ruined your relationship with him, mostly because he felt you would be too anchored to a child that would pull you back into the terrible moment you realized it was Caspian who fathered the child, not Gregory. The night of the conception, he drugged you. She provided him with the drugs that would make you sleep. And when the baby was born, they took the child from you and said it did not survive. They took the child, and now someone else somewhere has it, Mother. Your baby is alive. The baby did not die. Aurora and Evie gasped. They locked arms and held each other, hearing such horrible, shocking news of something Aurora had already mourned for too long, almost a year. She didn't want to believe it. She felt her knees shaking and asked to be seated on the edge of the pew. Her heart fluttering, she began to see stars all around her, and she lay her head back and looked up towards the ceiling, the tears pooling in the corners of her eyes. Where's the child now? Did you overhear that too? Why didn't you tell us, Nicholas? Why did you hold on to this for so long? Evie scolded. I didn't know it was true. I had to find out first if there was truth in any of that, so that I could tell you with certainty that this baby, this boy, is alive somewhere. Boy, Aurora asked. I had a girl, she recalled. Another lie, Nick said. Gregory lied about the child's sex, probably to keep you away from any baby boys you saw. I don't know, but Ashia hated all of this. She wanted to tell us, but Gregory refused her and blackmailed her. He had something on Ashia, and when she continued to push, he took her and locked her in the room. We realized when her goodbye letter came that it couldn't have come from her. It was typed, not handwritten, and made very little reference to anything Ashia would have truly said. Didn't make sense, Nicholas told me everything, and I agreed to help him by diverting attention from Gregory while at the park so that Nick could search for Dr. Hoffman, Dr. Ward explained. I can't believe this. I can't believe any of this, Aurora said, Evie quickly going to sit next to her. After you were told the baby died, Mother, you always said that you felt it wasn't true. Something inside you felt that, Evie recalled. But for Gregory to have done this to me, he said he loved me. He said he cared for me and would protect me. After all this time, he was doing something horrendous behind my back, Aurora realized. Ashia, we have to speak with Ashia. I need her to look me in the eye and tell me this is all true and tell me where the baby is. Nick and Dr. Ward looked at each other with worried expressions. What is it? Evie asked, clocking this. It's Dr. Hoffman. Dr. Ward began. She's unable to tell you everything, not right now. What does that mean? Was she detained by the police for this? Or us? No, she's unable to speak to you on this because when the fire broke out, the ceiling collapsed on her and Nick. And when Nick pulled her out, she was unconscious. We believe she inhaled too much smoke for too long, and it has rendered her in a coma. A coma, Aurora shouted. Is it permanent? Don't know yet, Nick added. We weren't under the debris for too long, so it could very be temporary, while her brain begins to get more of the oxygen it was lacking while she was under and breathing in all the smoke. But we have to wait. She also suffered burns on her legs and arms, more than Dr. Jordan. So the body, too, needs to recuperate from that, Dr. Ward explained. I just can't believe all of this. Gregory is dead and my child is alive, Aurora said, before pausing and letting the entire heft of the moment sink in. Gregory is dead and my child is alive, she repeated. Eva grabbed her mother, and they held each other in a tight embrace, both sobbing over the realization and shocking news that had come out just overnight. The truth was painful, but in a way there might finally be a ray of hope of Aurora, who had always known something about the birth of the baby never made sense. She felt perhaps she was being silly, or that she had some sort of dream while the baby was being born that made her believe an alternative story that the child did survive. In truth, Aurora was right all along. Gregory had been gaslighting her. I need to find him, Aurora said to Evie. I need to find my child. While staring at her wedding ring, the newly married Mary Good stood outside the front door of Terramore House. She promised she'd come to the family mansion to give Celeste the news of what was happening to the secret man they had in common, Philip. It had been a strange coincidence that Mary and Jacob were together years ago, and Philip and Celeste were together years ago. And at the time, the universe found ways to switch these two couples in ways none had ever imagined. For Mary, Celeste deserved to know of the dangerous road ahead for Philip. The door opened after Mary rang the bell, and head housekeeper Jane Donnelly opened it. Miss Good, Jane said, what can I do for you? Before Mary could answer, Jacob passed the foyer and saw his daughter's mother at the door. Mary saw him too and watched him slowly walk to the door with a very familiar, confident swagger. the one that lured her in many years ago. Run along, Jane, he said. Jane obliged and rushed off, sensing the heavy awkwardness of two X's facing off. I need to speak to Celeste, Mary said. Why, Jacob? This message is for Celeste, Mary replied. Why? Jacob again asked, refusing to budge. It's about Philip, and I think she would want to know from me before it gets out. I can deliver the message. What is it? Jacob asked. Mary's eyes narrowed at Jacob, whose stubbornness never ceased to amaze her. She rolled her eyes and realized she probably would win the argument. Jacob, it's important that we don't play games here, she said. Jacob flashed his wicked smile. Oh, but I do love games. Please, I'd like to see your wife. Jacob crossed his arms. No. Fine, have it your way, but I'm urging you to tell Celeste the truth. Jacob smirked again. Far be it from me to lie. You know that's not my style, Jacob replied, clearly being ironic because even that was a lie. Mary sighed. In the days to come, there will be some very disturbing information coming out about Philip, and I want her to know that I'm doing all that I can to fix it and make him whole again. He's undergoing something so horrible that, well, we weren't sure he was going to survive, but I'm doing all that I can to make sure he does. Mary said skillfully the truth of the matter. Philip Fleikenson, what does that mean? Rex asked. Is he ill? In a way, it's about what the news is saying about Sebastian and the killings, Mary said. Sebastian? Yes, the news is wrong. It's not Sebastian that is doing these horrible things. He's not the monster everyone thinks he is, Mary said, still unable to say it out loud. We all know he's not this supposed monster. I can attest to that. But wait, are you saying that Philip is? Is Philip responsible for all this? How? Jacob, finally connecting the dots. Mary only nodded. How? Jacob asked again. Is it possible that he's responsible? I saw that thing last night, Mary. I saw it rip through people. And its jaws, I saw its body. That couldn't be him, could it? That was Philip? Mary nodded again. I can't explain everything, but I can assure you and Celeste that I have a plan to save him, and what's the plan? That is where Sebastian now comes into play. I'm going to Belmore Beach to see Evie. If she knows where he is, I believe she does, I think he can be the source of saving Philip from everything. They're connected, Philip and Sebastian. I'm going to make sure we're all saved from this. If it's the last thing I do, Mary explained. Mary, this is insane. All of this, everything has been insane for years, and when I think about you involved in this, you make me think of your mother. Do you understand that? Your mother was a lunatic who believed in all this black magic and nonsense. You're just going to make matters worse. Are you saying you don't believe all the things that you've seen with your own eyes for the last years? Jacob, you assisted in an exorcism for God's sakes, Mary reminded Jacob. Jacob took a deep breath. He did believe it. He knew what he saw. He knew the truth for years now of what Sebastian was. He knew what Caspian was. He knew what her mother was and how all of it was indeed real. But it was hard for him to admit out loud, especially admit it to Mary herself, a woman he wanted to fool at every chance he got. But it was too late. The truth was out there, and now there seemed to be more of it in front of his face. Belmore, huh? Jacob said of the house where Evie was living now. A gift from Rebecca. That was supposed to be our house, you and I. Jacob reminded Mary the happier times of their relationship before Charlotte was even born. It was David and Sabrina. Mary's corrected him, throwing back in his face the couple he was more envious of. Yes, well, it should have been ours. Well, Celeste, Jacob, Mary said to tell that Philip is in trouble, but I'm going to help him, and everything will be fine. I don't want her to worry. When more and more news comes in, Baxter Murphy is on a tirade, and I want her to know that Philip, she remembered and loved, is still there. I think that's important. She doesn't think of him, Jacob said, with a bit of a snark in his voice and jealousy. Mary lifted her brow and smirked. Of course not. She only thinks of you, that's right. While the two ex-lovers caught up, they were not alone. Jacqueline Gray, a witch, herself sensed Mary's energy. When she stood at the front door, she crept slowly down the winding staircase, and just before she hit the midway point, she slowly became invisible to the human eye. She sank over towards the front door, stood directly next to Jacob, and listened to Mary explain what she was doing there at Terramore House. But nothing seemed interesting until mention of Sebastian's name. Sebastian, her beautiful missing Sebastian. Jacqueline needed him, missed him, wished she could find him too, but he was gone. Yeah, every feeling Jacqueline had of him had vanished too. Jacqueline, it was Evie who hid him away, and of the intent and purpose killed him in her universe. He was gone, but Mary believed she could convince Evie to unearth him wherever he was. Do you think Evie will tell you where Sebastian is? That is, if she actually knows, Jacob said. She has to know. She's the last person who saw him, and once I tell her about Philip and how I need Sebastian to save Philip, to save us all, she'll help me. I trust her, Mary said. Oh, good luck then. I think you'll need it, Jacob said. As Mary turned, feeling somewhat fulfilled for delivering the message to Celeste, she heard Jacob call her name. Tell our child I said hello, would you, and that I love her, Jacob said of their daughter Charlotte, once again displaying his rare warm side. Mary smirked and nodded that she would. Oh, and be careful, Mary, Jacob added. Jacqueline quickly passed Jacob in the doorway invisibly, and she began to lift her feet off the ground as not to leave marks in the sand. Jacob felt the cool wind blow past him that was Jacqueline's invisible body. He felt the chill that was something there, an entity that had slowly made its way through the doorway. He quickly closed the front door. Mary, too, felt something following her witchy senses perked up like an antenna. She turned to look behind her. Terramore got smaller and smaller behind her. She could see the warping of the air as Jacqueline's body floated and following Mary to Evie's beach house. Mary turned quickly and lifted her arm in the air. Large boulders and logs on the side of the road fell into the air and towards the strange, warped, transparent air in front of her. Jacqueline, the source of the warping energy, moved quickly and camouflaged herself within a bush. Mary knew she was being followed, but didn't know by what. She reached into her bag and removed a small veil of salt and encircled herself in it. Post-lapsum resident non-holy. A spell, Mary recited in Latin. Jacqueline, hiding in the bushes, chuckled. It wouldn't work on an invisible entity. Mary stood on the road and listened to the wind. swished through trees. For several moments she felt nothing. Now safe, she continued to and Jack. Evie's and Jacqueline followed, slowly making her invisible way to find her beloved Sebastian, hopefully within the walls of Belmore Beach House. Down in the village, Lear and Lucas were watching clean up around. Well, Lear and Lucas were watching clean up around Village Park and burn down Constable Station. They couldn't believe all the destruction that happened all in one night. I don't think this town has ever seen anything like this before. Lucas sighed, deep sigh, his heart full of sadness for everyone affected by the creature's attack the night before. But something else was on his mind, something about what he and Lear overheard at Caramel House, the family drama that Lear was clearly trying to avoid. I know that we're still getting to know each other, but if there is anything you'd like to talk about, I'm a good listener, Lucas said. Lear smiled. I know. If this is about what happened at Caramel, I wish I could tell you more. I really do. I just need some time to really get to the part of my life, Lear explained. Unfortunately for Lear, that time was coming faster than he anticipated. Coming up the block, as Lear and Lucas looked on down during cleanup, was Cora Taylor, in a furious stride, zigzagging through other townspeople to make her way to Lear. You ever know when someone's walking with a purpose? Some vision in this. She wanted the truth, all of it, and she wasn't going to take no for an answer. Lear turned to see right, and by sheer coincidence, there was Cora standing dead center on the pavement. Is it true? Cora asked, knowing Lear knew exactly what she was talking about. He stammered, Cora, hi. Is it true, Lear? Tell me, she demanded. What's this about? Lucas asked her. He knows. Cora, please, Lear began before she interrupted. Baxter told me everything, but I want to hear it from you. Now tell me the truth, Lear. Am I Maggie Lockwood? Lucas looked at Lear in complete shock, knowing what he had just overheard at Terramore House, and putting together what Cora was trying to as well. He could tell the family secret of Lear's past was once again rearing its head into his present. Cora, consider your source. Baxter, as you know, is on some bizarre rampage to tell stories and make things into something that they really aren't for his own gain. Think of what would mean his sister is really a member of an extended Lord family. Come on, Lear deflected. He seems very sure of himself on this one, she replied forcefully. Always felt as I was different from him and from our parents. And if it's true, this is true. If I actually am your sister, then what, Cora? What would that change in your life? Lear asked. Lucas' heart sank. I need to hear it from you, and I need to hear it now. Lear wanted to tell her all of his best and good instincts told him to tell her, to be honest, to finally reveal the truth and finally have his true sister back in his life. But he lied. He stared her dead in the eye and lied again. He didn't even know why he lied. He just did. He told her she was not Maggie Lockwood, the baby sister his desperate money father sold to the Baxters for $50,000 when she was just a baby. He lied to her face. He lied, and Lucas could tell he lied. He had only knew Lear for a few months, and that had become close, and it was as plain as day. Lear was lying. Lucas is a good reader of people. Uh, that's what I think. What? Why would Baxter say this if it's not true? She asked. Lear, Lucas began to say before Cora interjected him. He told me everything. He said Henry Lockwood, your father, ruined his life and lost all of his money, that he was desperate for cash and somehow convinced your mother to sell their child, their baby girl, a baby girl that was adopted by the Baxters. Me. Was it me? Tell me, she begged. The story was starting to sound quite familiar. What Lucas had overheard at Terramore. Everything started to click in Lucas's head. And inside he was begging Lear to come clean. Cora was pouring her heart out in front of him, and all she wanted to know was who she was, the truth of it all. She deserves to know, Lucas said. Lear, please, Cora added. But Lear stood his ground. There was too much still to do, and if he was going to tell the truth about Cora/Maggie, then things for him would crumble all around him. He wanted Maggie to still be missing. He wanted that child not to be found. For him, it was a way to keep the pain in his mind fresh and real, and as long as it was still fresh and real in his mind, his baby sister was missing, he could continue to blame Rebecca for it all. Everything he had done so far was in order to make Rebecca pay for what Lear saw her responsibility on his family's destruction. Nothing was ever the same after little Maggie vanished into the black market, and she wouldn't resurface now. Lear was not done with Rebecca, no matter how innocent she really was in all of it. Just like so many of the things he's putting in the paper, Cora. This too is fantasy, Lear said. It was a complete 180 from what Lear wanted to do. Initially, he wanted to tell Cora the truth, but hearing Jacob tell the story of what happened changed his mind to Lear. But his Lord cousins only saw him as the son of the man who sold his child, poor, desolate, common. No matter what he did, no matter how many degrees and accomplishments Lear achieved in his life, he'd always feel like he was at the bottom of the wood when it came to the Lords. His little branch of the family tree was just as sad a story for them to tell. He'd never let them get the relief knowing Cora was safe and sound. No, he'd continue to use it to his advantage and ruin their lives. Cora's eyes welled up with tears. She was confused, hurt, broken down. I want nothing to do with you or Baxter. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, Lear? Leave me the hell alone. She scared as bystanders began to see the strange outburst she was having right there in the middle of town. Lear's heart sank as he watched his little sister rush off in tears away from them back down the block. When he turned, he saw a very different expression on Lucas' face. You're lying, Lucas said. Lucas, listen, Lear began. No, I have to go, Lucas said, his stomach feeling cold and empty. He couldn't stand a liar. Lucas, wait, please, Lear shouted. When you are ready to tell the truth of it all, to that poor girl, come find me. I'll be at Matthew's. Lucas went off to the Winterbourne apartment, leaving a lying Lear alone in the street with an audience of Welsh courtiers watching the drama of secrets and lies unfold like a live play. A cold wind washed across the white golden sand dunes of Belmore Beach, where Evie two-story cottage stood in its Cape Cod-style elegance. The white paint of the front facade had slightly scratched away by salty winds over the years. Mary Good noticed how different it looked to her as she stepped up its bricks front pathway. She knew the house well, but it held no happy memories for her, and as shadows invisible to the human eye, Jacqueline Gray stood and listened and watched. She followed Mary in hopes of news of Sebastian Nord. Mary took a breath and knocked on the door. She waited a few seconds and was surprised to see Matthew Winterbourne on the other side. He opened the door as his hair a tussle of dark curls crowning his chiseled square jaw, his eyes foggy, his handsome face was glowing, a picture of love in the afternoon. Mary smiled, recognizing the look. "I'm sorry to bother you," she smirked. "What can I do for you?" he asked. "Is Evie here?" she asked, her eyes darting to his open shirt. Matthew smiled shyly and buttoned his open shirt. "She is, but she's with her son. He's just waking up from a late nap," Matthew explained. "Matthew, it's very important that I speak to her." "Very important," Mary replied. Jacqueline slowly made her way closer to the conversation. She was certain she'd discover where Evie had hidden Sebastian away. She'd get to him first, faster than Mary. This was her one last chance to find the man she loved more than anything and take him back. Matthew stepped outside and leaned the door against his body. He was apprehensive at letting in the witch Mary Good. Something inside of him, an instinct he could not understand, sent up a red flag. "I don't want to upset Evie. She's been through enough," Matthew whispered. "Matthew, I know you and I don't know each other very well, but this is about life and death, and only Evie can help," Mary explained. Jacqueline, impatient with Matthew's holdout, lifted her invisible hand in front of his face. She closed her eyes and whispered a spell. It sent an invisible light into his mind, releasing his apprehension. His eyes sparkled a bright light, only visible to Jacqueline. Mary felt a cool air wash over her face, too. She turned to her right, and then her left, trying to find the source of the mysterious coldness, but there was nothing there. Then Matthew surprised her. "Come in," he said without any further ado. As Mary entered Belmore House, she saw how fresh and new it looked inside. It had been remodeled just for Evie and Gable, a new look for a new life. Gone were all the old furnishings and paintings. She had been there decades ago, when the house was to be hers. Hearing the voices in the front room, Evie came elegantly dressed in a cream-colored silk robe. She held a silly Gabriel who tugged on her earlobes and giggled in a glow of light from the afternoon light. "Mary," Evie said, surprised to see Sebastian's cousin, and one time attempted murder. "What are you doing here?" Mary took a breath to speak, realizing she had a large dose of shocking news just as the invisible Jacqueline Gray passed through Belmore's house wall. "I could tell I interrupted you all," Mary began, "but I had to come here. I had to see and ask your help on your very urgent matter." The invisible Jacqueline sinked around like a snake into the brush, her eyes zeroing in on her rival, Evie's mind locking to her psyche to make sure whatever she had told to Mary would be clear to Jacqueline. The search for Sebastian was that intense, that important, and that vital to everyone's survival. What is it, Evie asked, balancing like Gabriel on her hip. It's about Sebastian, Mary replied to a silent room. Name was burned deep into Matthew's brain for all that the months he was lost at sea and strained in Azores Islands. He had fully regained his memory. He knew of the woman he loved, the woman he soon found to be Evie. He knew something kept from them apart. He saw slight memories of the fire of Lockwood Thicket that took Alice's life. The flashes and short memories were slow to come, but when Mary said his name, a sudden flash came into his mind of the vicious vampire that almost took his life, and to the life of his sister Alice. Mary remembered Sebastian's bloody mouth, Matthew, his fangs, his vicious, cold, and black eyes, the same feeling that came over him every time he came into contact with Sebastian suddenly hit him again, this time like a piano falling from a fifth-story window and crashing over Matthew's body. Evie could tell Matthew was bothered by Mary bringing up Sebastian's name. I don't know what you'd want from him. He's gone, Evie said. Jacqueline sensed the lie and got closer. Mary gulped. I know you want everyone to believe that, but I think you and I both know that isn't true, and I need to get his help. It's a matter of life or death. Is someone sick? Matthew asked. Mary only nodded yes. Mary, what's going on? Evie asked in a serious voice, sensing there was something Mary wasn't telling her. It's Philip, Mary began. I'm afraid something very serious has happened to him, and Sebastian may be the only one to help keep Philip from dying. It's on the brink of death, and I can't tell you much more than that. Evie tells me Sebastian is gone. I don't recall too much of my exposure to him, but the small bits of memory that I have, I think his vanishing is for the best, Matthew said. Why would we want to bring him back into the fold, he added, because he could save Philip's life. In fact, I know he can, Mary said. Evie sighed, concerned with the request. She knew where Sebastian was. The two of them had agreed that he should be hidden from everyone. It was the safest option for all involved in his cursed life. Bringing him back would only interject more terror into everyone's lives, and that was not something Evie wanted, especially now that Matthew was back and she had Gabriel back. I don't think you understand exactly what you're asking from me, Evie said. There isn't any way I can help you, not like this, not for information on Sebastian. I'm sorry. Evie, listen to me, Mary said, her voice growing deeper and much more serious in tone to match Evie. You do not know what you're saying when I speak of life and death. I don't know means Phillips. This could mean everyone on this island. We're all in danger of. You saw what happened last night, didn't you? You read what they're putting in the paper, haven't you? They're saying it was Sebastian who did that. They're saying he's the monster running around the island, killing fishermen and women in alleys, and even Gregory. They're blaming Sebastian, but I know it wasn't him. The invisible Jacqueline sensed Evie's mind open up more. She was curious. But you know who or what it was? Evie asked. Mary nodded and replied, Philip. Evie's eyes wide. Matthew student, no, that beast it was Philip. How could it be? Uh, Mary shook her head. I don't know all the details. It happened weeks ago, and the power of the full moon compels him to do this. In that form, it's what I was saying. It's like Sebastian. Sebastian isn't the truly at his core the creature he became, but he can't help himself, neither can Philip. The two are connected in a way that is only understood by the powers of the supernatural. One can heal the other, and only together, one in person, can they do that. This is insane, Matthew shouted. You're asking her to go against her own judgment to keep one killer away to save another. Matthew, you don't understand, Mary began. I do understand. Sebastian took my sister's life, so I know very well what we're dealing with here. I know what you mean by life and death. I may not have all the memories back of Sebastian, but I am very clear there. He's a killer. Even he knows how dangerous he can be. Don't want to go dig up old graves, Mary. Not now, not ever again. Matthew, Evie said, showing signs she was sympathizing with Mary. You should listen to her. Why, Evie? She wants to bring back the man that almost killed Nick. Man that killed Alice. The man that was responsible for bringing that Jacqueline Gray into your life. A woman that became so obsessed with him she faked your death and had you buried alive. The long laundry list of nightmare events in Evie's life didn't sit well with her, or the invisible Jacqueline Gray who snarled at her transparent body at him. The anger inside Jacqueline was so potent that she moved around the room. Her invisible spell started to slightly break free. Her hand slightly brushed up against the picture frame and knocked it over. Matthew, Mary, and Evie's head snapped to the fallen frame. It was still a remnant of Sabrina Lord's decorations, a baby picture of Sebastian. Evie went over and lifted the picture frame up and looked at it. Little Gabriel patted the glass of the frame, his little hand. He looked exactly like his father. In fact, Gabriel was the same age as Sebastian in the photo. Please, Evie. I know this is hard for both of you, but I need to find Sebastian, and I need to get him to help Philip. He would. I know he would. He and Philip were the best of friends for so many years, and they'd do anything for each other. Life has been different for us all in the last 4 years, but I know in my heart that my cousin would not hesitate to help Philip if he knew he could. He turned to Matthew. He shook his head no. Can't let Philip die, she told Matthew. It's not just Philip. So many people can die if we don't get him help right away, Mary added. She turned to Matthew. Matthew, if I could take back what Sebastian did to Alice, I would. I swear to you, I would. I'd do it in an instant. But the truth is, that isn't an option. And if we don't find Sebastian as soon as possible, well, frankly, the village will see more and more Alice's in the future. Philip has already destroyed more lives than I can think in a very short amount of time. There's no telling what will happen if Philip isn't saved. Jacqueline swirled around the three like a ghost, an invisible puff of smoke, chilling the room, hoping any morsel of information on her below Sebastian. Her below Sebastian could slip out of Evie's mind, but Evie had learned learned long ago to protect herself. Too many times had people tried to pry things from her hands, her heart, her mind without her permission. She held herself strong, her mind like a steel trap, elusive with information that Jacqueline forced to sit and wait for something, anything to come from the meeting. This is a huge risk, Matthew said. I don't want to lose you again. You've only just gotten to this point, and now we're thinking about going back down the Sebastian Road. I love you. I love you. Sebastian causes you so much pain and heartache. I just want to be sure you're going to be okay, both of you, Matthew added, patting little Gabriel on the back. Go on, tell us, do it, Evie. You know you want to, Jacqueline thought. Evie still said nothing. I don't know. Evie, please, Mary begged. Please think of your son's future. This is about him too. If Philip isn't saved, there may not be a Welsh port for him to grow up in. For my baby too. I want Caleb to know his father, the real Philip, not what he became. Only Sebastian would do that. How can you be certain? Be certain, she asked. Evie, no, Matthew said, again sensing Evie's tilt toward Mary. I promise you, I know he can't. Jacqueline couldn't wait any longer. She opened her hand, and in her invisible form, a light that could only be seen but for her eyes began to filter through her body. The light lifted out of her hands and formed a ball of white light, tiny blue strands swirled around and floated over to Evie. Gable turned and saw the ball and reached for it. Confused, Evie lowered the giggling baby's hands. Mary felt a cold chill and turned toward where the invisible Jacqueline was standing. While light from Jacqueline went into Evie's body, Gabriel saw it and did the sign with his little fingers for bye-bye. She's there, Mary said. What? Who? Matthew said. She's here, Mary said again, scanning the room without. Where are you? Come out, Mary said. I'll take you to him, Evie suddenly said, shocking her. Mary turned back from the search of Jacqueline, the temporary distraction, something less important. Jacqueline's ball of energy was like a truth serum in a witchcraft form. Her mind became unlocked. All the secrets of Sebastian's were going to be free for Jacqueline to go on. Tell us, Jacqueline thought of herself, dying to know where he was. I'll take you to Sebastian. And the room warmed. Mary turned to where she thought she felt Jacqueline. The sensation had subsided. Gabriel again did the bye-bye sign to what he may have seen in the room. We have to go now, Evie said. Mary agreed. Time was of the essence. Evie, please don't do this, Matthew begged. Evie's eyes watered. She knew how much Matthew loved her and worried her, but if Sebastian was key to saving Philip, a person Evie always saw as kind and strong, and would do everything to protect the world he loved it when it was decent and good, then she too would do whatever she could to preserve that world too. She owed it to Philip, she thought, to help. I think he'd do it for me, Evie said. Philip would, Mary said. No, Sebastian, Evie corrected. If he knew that I was too key to helping save someone, and he was the only person that knew where I was, he'd do whatever he could to help, he explained to Matthew. But what about, Matthew began before she interrupted him. We'll be fine, you and me, this little one, he said. But I have to do this. Matthew knew there was not changing Evie's mind after she had decided. He nodded his head and kissed her on the crown of hers. He took Evie and her baby in his strong arms and held them tightly. He loved them with his heart and now that they were back in his life, he'd be he he and theirs. He wouldn't let anyone destroy it. Anything. Not Philip's monstrous, murderous creature, not Sebastian. I'm going with you, he added. She smiled and kissed him, sorry. I wouldn't want it any other way, she grinned. He packed up the baby and his things, and they left to drop him off. Caroline should take Mary to reveal the location, and she'd hide Sebastian, the undead vampire whose blood ran cold with Philip's force. Let's see. As evening approached, the Sirens Call pub saw a slew of villagers gathering to air their grievances and mourn the shocking events of the night before at the full moon celebrations. Women came in with boxes of candles for the candlelight, vigils slated from the coming night. Their husbands, brothers, and sons, on the other hand, groaned in beer and wine-filled frustrations with Baxter's infamous and inflammatory column in their hands. They've always been hiding this. Always been, one fisherman yelped. It's no wonder there's always some kind of dead body up there. Well, Albert Lord himself must have been one of the first victims of Sebastian's monster. Who knows? Another man shouted. Who do y'all think killed Sabrina last? The third fisherman from Scotland shot out. They say it'd be David himself, but my eyes on the devil, boy from hell. Sebastian, he killed his grandpa, and probably his ma, too. That's enough, y'all, shouted one of the barmaids in her own Irish accent. We don't know the truth to any idiots. I see a lover there, mate. Maybe she's one of Jacob's gals. A drunk man laughed, thinking the barmaid to long-whispered rumors of Jacob's supposed many mistresses. All right, let's just all keep our heads and wits about us, said a voice in the crowd. Everyone turned to see Mayor Timothy Churchill standing in the center of the group. People from his administration drinking and discussing the events of the night before over their own brews. Mayor, you know as well as all of us what the Lords have up at Terramore. It's in your own family tree. The man shouted. It was true. Mayor Churchill's family was one of the first 5 families settled on the island. He knew the Lords, Lockwoods, and the other backwards and forwards. He knew the mysterious ways they behaved and all the money and the power they wielded. The truth was the richest family on the island only believed their secrets were theirs. In fact, the whole town knew about them, talked about them, spread them around, and made them their own. What would you suggest, sir? Should I call them out for the way Mr. Baxter Murphy has? I think the damage on that has already been done, the mayor reflected, realizing it was Column itself selling the town and deeper into a fever. We don't want to wait for this bastard to come back and kill more of us, Mayor. We don't need to end it before it ends us, a man shouted. End it, the mayor asked. Take him down, a 5th man shouted. Take him down, take him down, take him down, the crowd in the bar chanting. A woman chimed in through the chant. We want to say You have to save us, or no one else will. Yes, a woman lighting a candle said. Look, look what he's already done. Look at with all the bloodshed. Another woman shouted at the barmaid in the back. The crowd continued to chant. The mayor did his best to calm them, but realized it was now out of his hands. Friends, tell me then, the mayor said as the crowd began to listen. As your mayor, I'm here to listen and to do what you, as the people who elected me, want me to do. So then I ask, what shall we do? The mayor's aides shot each other looks, worrying that this would be a dangerous path to slide down, one where drunken and angry townspeople were going to dictate to the mayor what they wanted through the fog of their grief and frustrations. It was a tinderbox that the mayor was about to light. The mayor stood and removed a man stood and removed a revolver from his waist, sighed. To Terramore! That's it. Let's go to Terramore and take that creature down where he lives. A woman screamed. Ah, the Scottish fisherman added, let's go up that house and kill the creature before he kills the rest of us. To Terramore, the crowd screeched over and over. The mayor turned to his two aides and shrugged. You heard them, boys? Looks like we're going to Terramore. The crowd gathered their things. They jumped up on their horses, carriages, and pottering automobiles. Some had firearms, some had sticks, others had daggers and knives. They wanted blood, they wanted Lord blood, and chaos was about to reach a fever pitch on the island once again. Really, really, really good. So you have the entire, basically, the hardworking fishermen who, service the town with food, and a lot of the townspeople, they're sick of it. They want they don't want answers. They want action. And there's no constable. There's no real. The mayor is just an elected. It's just the mayor has no real law and order. He's not a cop, so there's no constable. Right now. So we'll see what happens there with that. Evie gets sort of does get put under spell by Jacqueline to go and get to help find Sebastian. I wonder if the mob will intervene in that in any way, and just try to oh, we're here for Sebastian, which is just that would be interesting if that happens. We'll see. We'll see. Aurora knows that her baby's alive. Nick said about it. But they do want answers from Ashia, who's in a coma. I wonder. I do have questions about that nurse. I do sort of wonder about her. Not in a bad way, but very, very interesting. We'll see. Link to Benight and Beguile will be in the description box. Hope you guys enjoy this. It's really, really good. Go check it out. Go read it. Have a good night.